The Tommy Campbell Show. Donald Trump's Oval Office has gone way past idiocracy. It's a clown car where Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth attempt to make policy through beer goggles. RFK Jr.'s doubling down on alternative math, while the boss is literally asleep at the wheel. There is no shortage of stupid to rip in today. And yes, Donald Trump took what was probably his longest nap on record. This isn't resting his eyes or deep thought. This is the guy who built a brand on Sleepy Joe, unable to make it to lunch without catching some Z's. I guess it takes a lot of energy to hide those hand sores now that Kristi Noem's not around with her makeup paint gun. How long before he tries to change the national anthem to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? But to be fair, he did wake up eventually, mostly because there was an opportunity to sell more merch.
Where's that hat? Does anybody have it? No, yeah, that's the old one, and then show them the new one. And we're never changing MAGA. I don't have the courage to change MAGA.
He was slurring there, right? It's like his brain is a dial-up modem powered by his diaper. Pimping an America is Back hat is pretty comical considering, the state of things. So I updated the headwear for accuracy. For the spring collection, I've got America is backwards, Let's Go Hamburgers, Epstein Air Frequent Flyer. I love how that's worn in. Tiny Mushroom Man. Ivanka loves Newsom. This bothers him. Wet Dreamer. And my personal favorite, Do Not Resuscitate. Subscribe. Speaking of barely breathing, Pete Hegseth is taking a 70-year military success story, the mandatory flu shot, and treating it like an optional topping at the hot dog stand he hit up after his latest all-nighter with Kash Patel. This guy thinks a viral load is just a metric for his Instagram stories, and now the Secretary of War, appointed by the No New Wars president, is throwing out the mandate because he thinks it's not rational.
Disastrous Biden administration. This Pentagon waged an unrelenting war on our warriors on many fronts, including when it came to denying them simple medical autonomy and the freedom to express their religious convictions. In other words, our men and women in uniform were forced to choose between their conscience and their country, even when those decisions posed no threat to our military readiness. You know what I'm talking about, what happened, COVID-19 and the vaccine. No more. That era of betrayal is over.
Pete's framing this as if Joe Biden personally invented the concept of military health in 2021 to harass people's freedoms. But here's the reality for the former Fox News host whose own mother wrote a letter calling him an abuser, liar, and cheater. Mandatory military vaccines aren't a woke Biden policy. They've been the standard since 1950. There were mandates through Eisenhower, Nixon, Reagan, and both Bushes because even Republicans believed in having an army that could actually stand up straight without needing an iron lung. And on the religious side, look, you can have your own beliefs, but you can't have your own facts. Vaccines save lives, full stop. If you really want to love thy neighbor, maybe start by not wiping him out with a preventable case of pneumonia because you heard Alex Jones say, if you actually want to stop the virus, you have to listen to me, not the globalists, okay? This is the exact concoction that you need. Big Pharma, they will not tell you. You need organic apple cider vinegar, minced garlic, onion, organic red wine vinegar, and lime. You put it all together and you drink it, and it will prevent the receptors. You will not get sick. Yeah, the marinade for chicken tacos isn't going to save you. Vaccines will. Countries fight in coalitions. Is this going to be another America alone situation where Canadian, British, or French troops refuse to share a base with a mobile petri dish that takes its cues from Joe Rogan podcasts?
Under President Trump, the War Department continues to take decisive action to once again restore freedom and strength to our joint force. We're seizing this moment to discard any absurd, overreaching mandates that only weaken our warfighting capabilities. In this case, this includes the universal flu vaccine and the mandate behind it. The notion that a flu vaccine must be mandatory for every service member everywhere in every circumstance at all times is just overly broad and not rational.
You know what's not rational? Losing 9 million training days due to a fever because the barracks turned into a biohazard blackout zone. If you want to see the literal foundation of the USA, look at George Washington, and he realized smallpox was a bigger threat to the revolution than the British bayonets. He didn't pull a Hegseth. He ordered the mandatory inoculation of the entire Continental Army. At the time, that meant rubbing infected pus into an open wound on a soldier's arm. Yeah, you like that? You like that there? Oh, come on. That sounds more irrational than a modern needle, but it worked. Death rates dropped from 17 to 1% and saved the war effort. Nothing says military readiness like hoping everyone just powers through the flu season. The whole army's just in bed doing Netflix and fever chills, which makes attacking them about as easy as Lauren Boebert in a theater.
Our new policy is simple. If you, an American warrior entrusted to defend this nation, believe that the flu vaccine is in your best interest, then you are free to take it. You should. But we will not force you because your body, your faith, and your convictions are not negotiable, your health. It's common sense. It's the kind of common sense approach we're undertaking in this department. Rest assured that under President Trump, the War Department will always honor our brave warriors and do everything we can to restore the American people's trust in their military for generations to come.
Pete's implying the flu is just a minor inconvenience, but he's falling for the classic stomach flu fallacy. Like most people, Pete probably thinks the flu is that time you had 4 old fashions and a bad clam at CPAC. No, Pete, that's gastroenteritis, or more likely norovirus. Those are stomach bugs. Actual influenza is a respiratory beast that lives in your lungs, causes pneumonia and organ failure, and still kills nearly 650,000 people worldwide, even with a vaccine. In 1918, more U.S. soldiers died from the flu, over 63,000. Then were actually killed in combat by the Germans. The invisible enemy was literally more effective at killing troops than tanks, bombs, and bullets. And it's important to understand that this Spanish flu wasn't some virus smuggled in depas. It was an influenza virus, the exact same family we deal with today. It didn't start in Spain, it started at Camp Funston, Kansas, because the US and Germany had wartime morale laws. They censored the news of their dying troops. Spain was neutral, so they're the only ones being honest. The world just blamed the messenger and called it the Spanish flu. In reality, it was a military flu that turned troop transport ships into floating coffins with 40% infection rates. Barracks aren't luxury condos, they are high-density virus factories. U.S. personnel are still required to get shots for measles, mumps, and polio. So why is Pete only offended by the one that stops the flu? But maybe there's a plan here. If the humans are too sick to hold a rifle because of these freedom policies, it creates a massive readiness crisis. And who is standing in the wings to save the day? Eric Trump.
Eric, I know this is a lot about national security, but Zedket's talking to us about other use cases. Tell us about that, and how did you get involved? What attracted you to this company?
Money.
It's going to change industry. It's going to change military application. It's going to change hospitality. The uses are unlimited, and I think it's a very beautiful thing, but we must win this race.
Yeah, no, I think you make great points. And
the Trump Organization isn't just a real estate company anymore. They are pivoting into the most lucrative business on the planet, defense contracting. If the humans are too sick to report for duty, Eric is standing right there with a fresh Department of Defense contract for robots. Why worry about a sick army when you can just buy the replacement parts from the president's son? This is the gameplay for replacing soldiers with hardware. The military is the nation's largest employer, and in the world of private equity and efficiency, humans are a budget nightmare. A soldier needs a salary, housing, a pension, and most importantly, expensive, high-quality healthcare that works. If Pete successfully guts the health of the force by making basic readiness optional, he's intentionally degrading the human product under the guise of freedom. There are obvious bonuses to having robots on the battlefield. Less loss of human life is fantastic. But there's also a massive danger. What happens when China writes a code to infect these things? Will the MAGA robots have a choice to have antivirus protection? Don't touch my USB port. I want the freedom to catch a Trojan horse. It's my motherboard, my choice. Finally, a military plan with a monthly subscription and a 30-day trial. But I just saw on Fox News that he donates his salary. Okay, don't fall for it. It's absolute absurdity to give away a $400,000 paycheck if he actually does, while turning the West Wing into a home shopping network. He's out there hawking new hats, gold sneakers, Bibles, and tacky watches that arrive with missing letters if they show up at all. But that's just the gift shop money. That's the side hustle, while the president is donating the pocket change at the front door to look like the man of the people. His kids are at the loading dock with a forklift.
But I would say this, Senator.
do you know what it
President Trump has a different way of calculating. If There's two ways of calculating percentage. If you have a $600 drug and you reduce it to 10, that's a 600% reduction.
But you know I only have 5 minutes. Do you know what the drug costs at Costco?
I do not.
The drug is $16 at Costco. Trump RX charges $200 for Protonics, and Costco charges $16. Let's do another one.
Sometimes I wonder if this guy's secretly trying to kill his brain worm with the tanning bed, and all he's doing is roasting his skin and giving the parasite a jacuzzi with those 3 remaining cells acting like the jets. He's claiming that if a drug price drops from $600 to $10, that's a 600% saving. Bobby, buddy, that's not how percentages work. That's a 98% reduction. If you reduce something by 100%, it's free. If you reduce it by 600, the pharmaceutical company doesn't just give you the pills. They have to hand you a check for $3,000 and wash your car. But wait, there's more. Donald Trump woke up from his nap to hear Bobby defend his math. Now watch Lutnick. They all know it's BS, but he's having the most trouble pretending it's not.
I was reminded when the president was speaking of a conversation that I had yesterday with one of the Democratic senators who was questioning me during a hearing, and she was ridiculing President Trump for his math. And she was saying, it's mathematically impossible to have a drug drop by 600% cost, which he had claimed. And I said, well, if the drug was $100 and it raised the price to $600, that would be a 600% rise. Well, if it drops from 600 to 100, that's a 600% savings. And the president used that mathematical device to illustrate the magnitude of the theft that has been happening against our country and our people, as he said.
He called it a mathematical device. That is a beautiful frog-throated way of saying, I'm lying to your face with numbers. Bobby isn't just getting the math wrong. He's arguing that the concept of a percentage is subjective. We aren't just dealing with alternative facts anymore. We're dealing with brainworm arithmetic, where the numbers are made up and decimals don't matter. I make this independent show on my own. If you love what I do, consider leaving me a tip, become a member for extras, hit up my referral links, and stream my stand-up on Spotify.
AI is going to revolutionize medicine. And it may at some point, make FDA even irrelevant. And it's going to give us the capacity to develop new drugs, personalized medicine for every citizen. You know, I just was reading about a dog that had cancer, and his owner used AI to develop a personalized treatment that cured the cancer. We're going to see that now in medicine, across medicine, and we're very excited about it. AI is very dangerous potentially, but it also has the capacity to bring really great things to humanity, particularly in the realm of human health.
RFK Jr is out here telling this story like some guy just sat on his couch and prompted his dog's cancer away. It makes it sound like a weekend DIY project, but this is the raw milk chugger that did roadside raccoon dick removal and deep fries turkeys barefoot. The reality is a lot more complicated. The dog's owner was Paul Conningham, an Australian data engineer and machine learning expert who didn't just use AI. He teamed up with world-class researchers at the University of New South Wales to sequence the tumor and use AlphaFold, a massive protein-folding AI, to design a custom mRNA vaccine. The same mRNA technology that RFK and Maha have spent years protesting is suddenly a miracle cure when a dog is involved. It turns out mRNA is full of 5G when it saves millions from a pandemic, but it's the future of medicine when it's used on a golden retriever. At the exact same time he's telling this story, his department's canceling $500 million in BARDA funding for the next generation of mRNA platform research. And the dog, Rosie, wasn't cured. Experts say she reached partial remission in an experimental trial where the tumor shrank, but the cancer is already showing signs of resistance. This entire experiment involved biopsy, sequencing, and lab manufacturing. It's not a laptop in a dream. It's an entire scientific infrastructure that Bobby is currently trying to defund while using a story about an experimental dog vaccine as proof that we don't need scientists anymore. I am all for AI, and I think it's massive when it comes to medicine. But it's a hammer, not the carpenter. Bobby thinks because he found a high-tech nail, he can fire the entire construction crew, and the house will just build itself. Call your doctor, it's time to double your TDS meds. Okay, TDS is wearing an America's back hat while you're filling your tank with gas that went up because of Trump, then driving to the store to pay the tariffs he added to your groceries. MAGA tears. You're one crazy guy. Are you afraid of the truth? You're sick. I do love the abundance of typos when you're trying to make a medical diagnosis. Really helps the credibility. It's like being called illiterate by someone holding their book upside down. Do you also work on Kash Patel's legal team, or are you just his proofreader? MAGA tears. Meant rubbing infected pus into an open wound on a soldier's arm. Ah, I got this one. This is... onions, organic, red wine vinegar, and lime, and you put it all together and prevent this. We aren't just dealing with alternative facts and treating it like an optional He's going to be in bed doing Netflix and fever chills, which makes attacking them about as easy as Lauren Boebert in a theater. Andy Bobo. Of barely breathing, Pete Hegseth is... Jeez. I can confirm the Tommy Campbell Show is the best political comedy show on YouTube. And I hope you subscribe.